No one at the Intergalactic Academy expected the human to be dangerous. They expected a quiet girl, maybe a little fragile, definitely overwhelmed by a galaxy filled with claws, fangs, armor plates, and species that towered over her. But on her first week, when an 800-pound war beast broke loose and charged straight at a crowd of students, she didn't run. She stepped forward, jumped onto its back, and lifted it by the neck. And that was only the beginning. That if you're already hooked, and honestly, how could you not be? Make sure to hit like, subscribe, and share. It helps the channel grow, and it tells me you want more wild HFY stories where humans rewrite the galaxy's expectations. All right, let's dive into this one. In 01 at the Intergalactic Academy, truly believed the human would last a week. Ruby, Earth's first exchange student, arrived with a backpack, a smile, an official file that basically screamed handle with care. To a campus filled with massive, armored, venom-resistant species, she looked like someone who could get injured by a stiff breeze. But from the moment she stepped off the transport shuttle, something felt off. Not bad off, just different. Her smile wasn't timid like they expected from a supposedly fragile species. It was bright, confident. She looked at towering aliens with the same relaxed curiosity someone might have walking into a new cafe. And when a crushed warrior named Gant, all 8 feet of arrogance and bulk, leaned down and said, "You're tiny," Ruby didn't flinch. She just smiled wider. "Average for a human female," she said politely. "Are all crushed this rude?" Even the headmaster almost choked. The students around them stared. Gant's jaw tightened, but she didn't back down. Not an inch. Something in her posture, a subtle shift, a barely visible tightening, told anyone paying attention that Ruby wasn't intimidated. She was assessing him. Later, many would say that was the first warning sign. During her first week, every expectation they had about humans fell apart, quietly at first. She handled extreme temperatures without complaint. She ate academy food that other species warned would overwhelm delicate Earth digestion. She navigated busy hallways like she'd been on campus for years. But the real shift began in Professor Moore's xenobiology class. Moore was famously condescending. According to him, the galaxy was divided into naturally superior species and everyone else. Humans, according to his lecture slides, were the everyone else. He claimed humans evolved on a soft world with minimal danger. He said they had no significant natural defenses, no claws, no armor, no venom, nothing noteworthy at all. Ruby raised her hand gently. "Yes, human Ruby?" Moore asked, barely disguising his sigh. "I'm confused," she said kindly. "You said humans evolved with minimal predation pressure. But Earth had saber-toothed cats, dire wolves, cave bears, short-faced bears." She listed predators like someone reading a grocery receipt. "And we were prey for most of them." Moore froze, clearly not expecting pushback. The class leaned forward. "You developed no natural defenses," Moore insisted. "Proving my point." Ruby tilted her head. "We developed intelligence, teamwork, endurance, toolmaking. We survived, not because we had claws, but because we made spears. We didn't need armor because we made shelters. And we didn't need venom because we learned to use poison better than anything that came before us." Students whispered. Ruby added, "Humans aren't fragile. We're persistent. There's a difference." By the time class ended, half the students were eyeing her like they'd just discovered an apex predator disguised as a tourist. Then came the fitness assessment. That's when everything snapped. Ruby's grip strength? Average. Fine. Expected. Her endurance run? She finished first. Not among humans. There were no others. She finished among everyone. And she wasn't even out of breath. "Who told you humans have poor endurance?" she asked, sipping water. "We're literally built for distance. We used to chase prey until it collapsed." Her flexibility? Disturbingly excellent. Her reaction time? Top 10 of the entire academy. Rumors spread fast. The human outran Avraxian. Those guys train in high gravity. She dodged every simulation attack. Maybe humans aren't weak at all. Gant, however, didn't find the rumors impressive. He found them insulting. In Crush culture, strength was status. And to him, The idea that a small, friendly human could outperform him in anything was a direct challenge. A threat, an insult that needed correcting. Unfortunately for him, and for everyone nearby, that correction happened in the worst possible place. The War Beast enclosure. War beasts were crushed pride incarnate, towering, armored creatures bred for military use. The Academy kept one, an 800-pound juvenile named Thorn, in a secure habitat for training demonstrations. It was not supposed to be approached. It was definitely not supposed to be released. But Gant, frustrated by Ruby's growing reputation, saw her admiring Thorn from outside the barrier and said loudly, "You think he's beautiful? Maybe we should introduce you." Pix, Ruby's roommate, panicked. "That's against protocol." But Gant wasn't listening. With one tap of his clawed finger, one override that only crushed students had, he opened the enclosure. The barrier dropped. Thorn looked up, and the war beast charged. Students screamed. They scattered in every direction. A creature the size of a ground vehicle thundered toward them on armored limbs, snarling, claws digging into the metal floor. Everyone ran. Everyone except Ruby. She stepped forward. "Ruby, move," someone yelled. She didn't. She sprinted toward the war beast. What happened next became mandatory viewing in Academy safety briefings. Ruby jumped, high, higher than any student expected a human could jump, and landed on Thorn's back. She locked her arms around his neck. Her legs clamped around his torso. She wasn't holding on. She was immobilizing him. A perfect chokehold. Thorn bucked wildly. Metal screeched beneath his paws. He twisted, rolled, snarled. But Ruby stayed attached to him like an anchor. She applied pressure, not enough to harm him, just enough to interrupt the blood flow to his brain. "Easy," she whispered into the war beast's plates. "Easy, big guy. Nobody's hurting anybody." Her voice was calm, soft, controlled. Within seconds, Thorn's struggles weakened. Not from pain, from technique. Then, he stopped fighting. Students stared, frozen. Security sprinted in, weapons half drawn, until they saw the impossible. The war beast was purring. Thorn, an apex predator bred for battle, leaned into Ruby's hand as she scratched behind his ear plate. "You're a good boy," she said gently. The entire habitat went silent. Ruby stepped away, brushed dust from her shirt, and turned to the stunned, crushed warrior. "That," she told Gant plainly, "was stupid. You put everyone, including Thorn, in danger. Strength isn't just muscles. It's knowledge. Control." She walked past him as security restored the barrier. Gant said nothing. No one did. The human had just lifted a war beast by its neck and made it purr. And every assumption the Academy ever had about humans shattered on the spot. After the war beast incident, the Academy didn't just notice Ruby, it recalibrated around her. Whispers followed her everywhere. Students stared at her in hallways like she was some kind of mythical creature pretending to be a teenager. Professors double-checked every assumption they had about Earth. Even Gant, who once saw humans as fragile prey, now treated Ruby with the cautious respect usually reserved for ticking explosives. But Ruby? Ruby acted like nothing had changed. She went to class, asked questions, made friends, laughed often, waved at people who clearly didn't know how to wave back. In most ways, she was still the cheerful exchange student who arrived with a backpack and a smile. Except now, everyone understood that smile might belong to a predator who simply chooses kindness. And that was when the next big storm hit. The rescue. 3 Quillen students had gotten lost in the maintenance tunnels. A maze of old, unstable shafts stretching beneath the Academy like the skeleton of a forgotten civilization. Going down there was forbidden, dangerous, foolish. Ruby heard they were missing and immediately volunteered to help search. The administration refused. "Too dangerous for a human," they said. "Stay out of the tunnels," they said. "Wait for updates," they said. Ruby nodded politely. Then, 2 hours later, she vanished. Pix noticed first. "She's gone," he whispered. "She didn't even take her backpack." "Oh wait, no, she did." By the time they sounded the alarm, Ruby was already deep underground. What the Academy thought would take rescue teams days, Ruby solved in 6 hours. She followed airflow patterns, dirt trails, the small, panicked scratches Quillen claws left on metal walls. She moved with determination and eerie calm. And when she found the trapped students behind a collapsed tunnel section, she reassured them like she was dealing with frightened siblings instead of students 3 times her weight. Then she got them out. She stabilized the tunnel wall using debris and leverage. She repaired a broken comm node using scrap parts and sheer stubborn ingenuity. And when the emergency rescuers finally located her, Ruby emerged from the shadows, carrying one student's pack and guiding the others like she'd just led a casual nature hike. The rescuers almost didn't believe what they saw. And the Quillen students? They'd follow her into a supernova after that. When confronted by the administration, Ruby simply stood straight and said, "Yes, sir. I disobeyed orders. But they were alive, and they're here." Her reprimand went on her record. So did her commendation. One meant nothing. The other became legend. But the moment that sealed her legacy, the story whispered across the galaxy, happened during the Wilderness Survival final exam. It was supposed to be simple. 3 days. Minimal supplies. Just survive. Ruby treated it like a vacation. She built shelter using wood, rope, and conviction. She gathered food faster than species who evolved specifically for foraging. She navigated terrain that terrified students with wings, claws, or hooves. But then Wex, a small Quillen student, wandered into a restricted zone and triggered his distress beacon. A predator was circling him. Not just any predator. A spine wolf, 8 feet long, 400 pounds, venomous quills, territorial to the point of madness. Wex had maybe 5 minutes. Emergency teams were 20 minutes away. Ruby was 300 meters away. She didn't hesitate. She ran. Not carefully, not tactically. She sprinted through brush, ducked under thorn branches, vaulted a fallen tree, and skidded into a clearing where Wex was backed against a cliff face, trembling, helpless. The spine wolf turned toward Ruby immediately. It expected fear. It expected retreat. It got Ruby. She stepped forward slowly, grabbing a 6-foot fallen branch from the ground. Not as a weapon, but as a boundary marker. She didn't attack. She didn't posture. She simply made eye contact with a predator that could kill her in one strike and spoke in a soft, steady voice. "Easy. No one here wants to fight." The spine wolf's spines bristled. Its tail lashed. It circled, confused by her composure. Ruby took a single, deliberate step backward. Then another. Her eyes never left the predators. "Wex," she whispered, "take one step when I do. Don't run. Don't scream. Breathe." Together, step by step, they backed out of the restricted zone. The spine wolf followed. But it didn't charge. Ruby kept her breathing slow, her posture low, her movements smooth. Every instinct in the creature's body screamed for aggression. But Ruby mirrored calm so perfectly that the predator hesitated long enough for them to escape. Only when they reached the boundary did the spine wolf stop, huff once, and disappear back into the shadows. Wex collapsed. Ruby didn't. "I told you," she said gently. "We're leaving." It understood. The emergency team arrived seconds later. "You faced a spine wolf with a stick," the Verisian team captain shouted. "I faced a territorial animal with a plan," Ruby corrected. "If I fought it, I'd be dead." Understanding behavior was safer. The entire academy absorbed that lesson like scripture. From that moment, Ruby wasn't a curiosity. She wasn't an anomaly. She wasn't the fragile human. She became something else entirely. A benchmark, a warning, an inspiration. Students asked her for training. Professors rewrote coursework because of her. Even Gant approached her one afternoon during the strength trials, rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly, and said, "I misjudged you. I thought you were weak." Ruby shrugged. "You weren't wrong. Humans look weak. That's the trick." After a long pause, Gant asked if she would teach him human leverage techniques. She agreed. 2 weeks later, he admitted she'd beaten him in a grappling match because she'd weaponized physics. By the time the academic term approached its end, Ruby had become something the Academy didn't know it needed. Proof that assumptions could be fatal, that underestimation could blind even the smartest species, and that humans were something different. Not the strongest, not the fastest, not the biggest, but the most adaptable. the most stubborn, the most unpredictable. At her farewell ceremony, Headmaster Torque spoke to a crowd overflowing into the courtyard. When Ruby arrived, we believed humans fragile. Instead, she showed a strength we could not measure on any chart. A strength of will, of adaptability, of courage. She taught us that capability doesn't always roar. Sometimes it walks in smiling. Ruby blushed, rubbing the back of her neck. "I just showed up," she said. "You all did the rest." When she boarded the shuttle home, students from 20 species lifted their hands, claws, tendrils, or wings to wave goodbye. Gant bowed. Pix cried. Even the war beast Thorn, safely contained behind reinforced glass, pressed his massive head against the window as if sensing his human friend's departure. And then Ruby was gone. But her legacy stayed. Her story became required reading. Her footage became part of safety briefings. And every year, on the first day of the new term, someone would whisper, "Have you heard the story of the human who lifted a war beast by its neck and made it purr?" The legend of Ruby, the girl they expected to be fragile, became a reminder to every species across the academy. Never underestimate a human. Ever.